I think that there are two ways of dying on stage. There's being unprepared, right? And then you deserve to die on stage, right? And then there's just sometimes things happen that, a line goes or you forget something no matter how hard you try. I think when that happens, you can forgive yourself a bit.
Hello, and welcome to the Amateur of Life and Death podcast. I'm Laura East. Each episode takes a look at a different aspect of the wonderful world of amateur theatre and features amateur theatre makers talking about their theatrical life, theatrical loves, and the times when they've died on stage. This month's episode focuses on Red Velvet, the 2012 play by Lolita Chakrabarti. I'll be speaking to actor Papa Anoh Yentumi about his role as the young Ira Aldridge in the upcoming Crescent Theatre Company production of the play. Red Velvet focuses on the young, accomplished American actor Ira Aldridge, who was the first black actor in England to play Othello on the professional stage, and who went on to be an acclaimed and much honoured Shakespearean actor around Europe. Red Velvet imagines the few days in 1833 when Ira is hired to take over the part from the famous white actor Edmund Kean at the Theatre Royal in Covent Garden, and how Ira Aldridge and the actors, theatre staff and audiences around him might have experienced that. The play Red Velvet deals with just a few days of Ira Aldridge's life in his mid-20s in London and in his 60s in Poland. Most of the play takes place in London in 1833, against the historical backdrop of the fight to abolish slavery in the British Empire. The actors of the Theatre Royal Covent Garden learn that Ira Aldridge has been hired to replace their lead actor in Othello, Edmund Kean, who has been taken ill. It was usual for white actors to play Othello using black makeup, and this is how Edmund Kean has played the role. Aldridge is an African-American man, and so his new colleagues, as well as critics and audiences, greet him with varying levels of prejudice, as well as envy from white actors who felt the role should have belonged to them. We watch Aldridge in rehearsal for Othello, proving he's an intelligent, powerful and modern Shakespearean performer. I won't spoil how the events of the play unfold, but when we meet the 60-year-old Ira in Poland, we meet an acclaimed actor with a long career behind him, preparing to play one of Shakespeare's most iconic roles, the title role in King Lear. But who was Ira Aldridge? When we meet Ira at the beginning of the play Red Velvet, he is about 26, but in real life this was by no means at the beginning of his career. Ira Frederick Aldridge was born in New York City in the USA, and as a young teenager in the 1820s he was already a professional actor with the African Company, who built their own theatre in 1821. Sadly, the people, other actors, officials and press in their neighbourhood subjected them to protests, racist parody and violence. To escape the hostility and discrimination against black actors in the United States, as well as the lack of available opportunities, Ira and his friend James Wallack emigrated to Liverpool, England in 1824, when Ira was about 17. Ira found early success acting in the provinces. In 1825, almost 200 years ago today, he was acting under the stage name Frederick William Kean, named after the famous English actor Edmund Kean, who he would later replace as Othello at Covent Garden. During these early years as an actor, Ira did receive positive reviews, but also had to fight against ignorance, prejudice and outright racism. One early critic from the Times seems to have given him the nickname the African Roscius, after the famous, highly popular ancient Roman actor Quintus Roscius. It's really very likely that this was intended as an insult, as Roscius had been enslaved at birth, but Ira turned this around on the critic and used it in his own publicity instead, capitalising on the fame of Roscius as a remarkable and popular well-known actor. In 1825, Ira performed as Othello in London's Docklands. It's worth pointing out as well that performance nights were much longer in this era, and he might perform multiple shows in one night. For example, a musical melodrama, a Shakespearean tragedy, poems and songs. He was hard-working and multi-talented. In January 1828, when Ira had been in England for 4 years, he appeared on stage in Birmingham in a musical melodrama and also in Othello, to excellent reviews from the Birmingham Gazette and Coventry Herald, with the Coventry Herald comparing him favourably to some of the most famous English actors of the day. He followed the theatre manager to Coventry, and Ira promptly replaced the disastrous theatre manager as manager of the Coventry Theatre Royal, becoming the country's first ever African-American theatre manager. At this point, Ira was nearly 21. Abolitionist sentiment was strong in Coventry, and while he was there, his activism helped inspire the people of the city to petition Parliament to abolish slavery. As an actor between 1824 and 1833, and following the events of the play Red Velvet in 1833, he toured extensively around England, Scotland and Ireland, before beginning his European tour in Brussels in 1852. He spent his European touring career being lauded and honoured by European heads of state. He's credited with bringing Shakespeare to Serbia, and he was very highly regarded in Poland. Ira never made it back to the United States of America, although he had planned a return tour there just before he died. He died in Poland at the age of 60, where he was given a state funeral. Although Lolita Chakrabarti didn't know it when she wrote the play, at his funeral his coffin was followed by a wreath borne on a cushion of red velvet. When Ira Aldridge was commemorated with a blue plaque outside the Belgrade Theatre in Coventry in England, the actor Adrian Lester said that for Ira to have achieved so much at a time when society thought so little is a testament to his tenacity and hard work. The playwright, actor Lolita Chakrabarti, was inspired to start writing the play Red Velvet in 1998 when her husband, fellow Birmingham actor Adrian Lester, performed a reading about Ira Aldridge at the Theatre Festival in Brighton. He told her about Ira Aldridge and everything he'd accomplished in the 1800s. Lolita couldn't believe that as an experienced, rather trained actor and person of colour, she'd never heard of him, not at school, not at drama school. Having hit upon the inspiration for her first play, she began researching the life and work of Ira Aldridge, even communicating back and forth with universities, libraries and bookshops by fax in the pre-internet days of her research. After 14 years writing and rewriting, first as a film and then later as a play, and trying to get it produced, Lolita Chakrabarti finally brought her first play to the stage in 2012 at the Tricycle Theatre in London, now the Kiln Theatre, under the direction of Indu Rabasingham and starring Adrian Lester as Ira Aldridge. Fast forward to 2024, and the play is available for amateur theatre groups to perform. At the Crescent Theatre in Birmingham, our two Ira Aldridge actors and the play's director had the chance to speak to the play's author, Lolita Chakrabarti.
There was so much to choose from. I mean, Ira Aldridge is an amazing man.
Lolita Chakrabarti.
There were so many details that are not in the play that I wanted to be in the play. But with a play, you have to find the story.
Hugh Blackwood, playing older Ira Aldridge.
A big intention of Lolita's was to kind of just get people to think and to debate and to talk about a really important issue, about the importance of lived experience in art.
You can watch selected clips from the interviews with Lolita in the Crescent's promo video for Red Velvet on YouTube. Search YouTube for Red Velvet, The Untold Story of Ira Aldridge, or you can watch the video on the Crescent Theatre's social media pages. This month I'm joined in the Crescent Theatre by Papa Anoh Yentumi, who's an actor at the Crescent. Papa's recent roles at the Crescent include Albert and Kevin in Clybourne Park, Dr. Kamal Abdic in The Girl on the Train, Don Pedro in Much Ado About Nothing, and most recently, a critically acclaimed Othello, described as pure charisma compared at one point to Al Pacino, a towering, powerful performance with a voice full of passion for living. Papa is currently rehearsing as the younger Ira in the Crescent's July 2024 production of Red Velvet, written by actor and writer Lolita Chakrabarti. Papa, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Tell us about your first love.
To answer that question, I'd need to start with my interest in acting in general. And I remember being as young as maybe 3 or 4, and you're trying to figure out things in the world, aren't you? You're trying to figure out, well, how does that work? How does that work? And I remember watching, I did a lot of TV watching. And I remember looking at the people, like how are they getting people onto this screen, this 2-dimensional screen? And it absolutely blew my mind. And in my head, either as a 3 or 4-year-old, I remember thinking, I know what it is. There are translucent people who live in the TV, made of maybe the same material that you'd make a light bulb with. And they live in the TV, and anytime you switch the TV on, there you go, they do something and they entertain you. And I thought that must be a fantastic job. And I thought, when I grow up, I want a job like that. I want to live in the TV and, when you switch me on, here I come and I entertain you for however long you've got the TV on for. Of course, as I grew up, I realized that's not the case. But I was still enthralled with the idea of pretending to be these characters to entertain people. And then, I learned actually that's acting. And so my interest in acting then just led me to wherever acting takes me. And so when I moved to the UK, I was just looking for different places that I could, I was a teenager at the time, just looking for different places, and I ended up on a course, BTEC musical theatre course, actually. And I thought, yeah, this is what I would love to do. And so here I am, yeah.
What's been the love of your theatrical life?
Favorite play would be, my favorite time in, sort of acting would be Much Ado About Nothing. Yeah. First of all, I love the play. I think it is at the moment, and I change my mind a lot, but at the moment it is my favorite Shakespeare play. I think it's one of the most accessible ones to many people. It's a good place to start, and especially with me, I didn't grow up with Shakespeare, so I've had to kind of learn it in my adult life. And also doing it at the Crescent Theatre with a fantastic cast. We had so much fun. It was just constant laughter. It didn't feel like work at all. So that was a really, really strong, good moment for me.
And that was quite recently, wasn't it? The last 3-4 years. Tell us about the one that got away.
The one that got away. That would be my second audition. I believe the play was Constellations.
That was at the Crescent.
That was also at the Crescent, yeah. I auditioned for things just hoping to be part of anything, but I don't think I ever wanted something that bad. And so, I didn't get it. I was really disappointed. But yeah, just the whole concept of the play and the, being a two-hander as well, and having that, I think, really challenges, pushes you as an actor and all of that. But yeah, I would say that was the one that, I'm hopeful that sometime in the future I'll get to do something with it somewhere. But yes, at the moment, that's the one that I really wish I got, yeah.
I was going to say it's quite a popular one at the moment. We've seen the National Theatre do it, and lots of other amateur companies around the UK. So I'd imagine it's not going away anytime soon. And there's not, I think there's kind of no upper or lower age limit on it, really. No, so I think, it's just about the time and place. So fingers crossed for you. Tell us about a time when you died on stage.
Oh, no. Okay. So this would be in college. Thankfully, it's in college. It was a scene study, and this was for this is going towards our final grades. And I can't remember what musical it was from now, but a friend, we used to work, we worked as a pair, this friend of mine and myself, and we were very comfortable with each other, and so anytime it was a bit of pair work, we always paired up and we always worked together. But anyway, with this particular scene, I remember the teacher telling us, I must have been about 18, I think, because it was my final year. Teacher telling us, saying, you guys need, every lesson, that you guys aren't rehearsing, you're just, typical teenage thing, you're messing about, you're not really doing the work. And, we thought we could wing it. I don't know what made us think we could wing it. And he says, look, this is going towards your final grade. And I remember he was a Greek, he was a Greek teacher. And the interesting thing about him was he doesn't do the whole cajoling and, come on, guys, he's telling you, you're going to flop. And we didn't listen. And the day came, and I don't know, at the back of our heads, we were thinking, it's not going to happen. No one's ready. It's not going to happen. But, being the strict teacher that he was, he's setting up the camera, and we're thinking, it's happening. Yeah. And, he's putting everything in place. And so we got up on stage, and it was just a absolute disaster. It was terrible. We hadn't blocked anything. Luckily, we did at least know the lines. We did learn that, but there was no blocking to it. The songs with the harmony were just off. And that wasn't the worst part of it, because part of the course says you have to do it twice. So, then the same occasion, because the idea is you need to show that you've actually blocked it and you've planned it, and it's not improvised, so to speak. Which it very much was, exactly. And so he made us do it again, and it was completely different from the first time, and probably even worse. It was an awful experience. Basically, we would have failed that unit. And I think I took a lot from that, a massive, massive lesson from that. Luckily, he left, and the handover to the next teacher was never done. So it was like it never existed. So we had a chance to redo it, and this time we made sure we were on the ball. Yeah.
So you've never put yourself in that position again?
No. I think that there are two ways of dying on stage. That's being unprepared, right? And then you deserve to die on stage, right? And then there's just sometimes things happen that, some line goes or you forget something no matter how hard you try. I think when that happens, you can forgive yourself a bit. Luckily, that hasn't happened to me yet. Fingers crossed.
So you're currently rehearsing for the Crescent's production of Red Velvet by Lolita Chakrabarti. The play centres around the experiences of the young black American actor Ira Aldridge as he prepares to play Othello in London in 1833 at the Theatre Royal in Covent Garden, and as he prepares to play King Lear at a theatre in Poland in 1867. As the actor playing the younger Ira Aldridge, what is the play about for you?
The obvious aspect of the play in terms of what runs through is the reaction of everyone else to Ira in terms of, the racism he faced and the discrimination he faced trying to play this character. So initially, that was what it was. It was for, that's what it was about for me. Yeah. And then we got that lovely chance to speak to, Lolita, which is, oh my God, I mean, how many people get to speak to the playwright? But yes, and then she opens the doors of so many different things. Yeah. I can honestly say I haven't done a play so far that creates so much discussion within the cast. Yeah. It could be about this, it could be about that. And then we all take something, and that's what Lolita said. So yes, it is about the racism and discrimination that Ira faced. I remember first of all reading that the first black actor to play Othello. Well, who else played Othello? So kind of how did, but then it makes sense. It's early 19th century behaviors towards people from Africa with certain ways, so on and so forth. That makes sense. But then it's also about theatre style or acting style. Right, because Ira was he was more about naturalism, right? And I mean, even what we would probably call bad acting now, he was part of that movement in a very big way. So it's that and how people responded to that. It's about friendship. He's really good friends with Pierre, the producer. It's also about relationships, romantic or even just professional relationships in terms of how he interacts with the other actors. So it's about all these things that happen in a very short period of time, sort of thing. So I guess to answer that question would be, yes, it started off with the obvious. Racism, discrimination, how dare they? To actually, this is a more human experience. This is it's about what he was trying to do, the pace he was trying to set in terms of his style. It was about the relationships he had. It was about his life as an actor. It was about what he had gone through and what other people were going through at the same time. There's even a bit of feminism in there. So it's about all of that.
So you said you got the chance to speak to Lolita. At what point in the rehearsal process was that?
I think that's midway through. Yeah. Midway through, we got to speak to her. I remember David, trying to organize it. So he sends me this WhatsApp message. He says, Papa, would you be okay to speak to Lolita? I'm trying to set this up, blah, blah, blah. And I remember looking at the message thinking, no, David, I don't want to talk to this famous person that has written this play, very sarcastically. But yes, it took him a couple of weeks from when he'd said it to me. And then, so sort of midway through the process.
David is one of our marketing team at the Crescent, yeah. I think you suggested it in your earlier answer, but so did it inform everyone's rehearsals and performances and stuff based on what you talked about? Or was it just a wonderful opportunity to...
Yeah, it was more of a wonderful opportunity than informing the rehearsals because, inform the rehearsals in a way, and that will make sense in a moment when I give the answer. But basically, after we fired questions at her, to which she answered, she left it saying, look, do what you want with it. Yeah. And that sort of permission coming straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, do what you want with it. On one level is like, what does that mean? Sort of thing. Is that going to change what I do? Another level, it's like, if the playwright says, do what you want, anything kind of goes. And so in that sense, yeah, it made us feel a lot more, certainly me, a lot more confident in what I was doing. Because if, the baton has been passed, so to speak, is, what you guys are telling me, you seem to get it. But at the same time, do what you want. Do these people have an affair? Do they not have an affair? It's up to you. You decide. Play it that way. Don't play it that way. Is it Pierre's fault? Is it not Pierre's fault? I'm saying things, if you're listening, you might not understand.
Well, you'll have to come in July to the show and find out.
Exactly.
One thing I'd observed as well is, because you mentioned that it's about drama and theatre and relationships and stuff. Lolita said previously that she's an actor first. It's like that's her first love, and then there's writing. Does that come across that an actor has written this play?
I think so. It's just some of the lines are almost word for word when I played Othello, and I think even Hugh will, sort of attest to this as well. Word for word, almost. Coming off stage, the first thing I do is I'd shout out at Sophie, who played Desdemona. My nickname for her was Deza. Her nickname for me was Papacino. So I'd go, Deza, was that all right? Did I hurt you? She'd go, nope, same again, Papacino, it's all good. And there's a whole sort of conversation between Ira, who, plays Othello, and Helen, who plays Desdemona. And they have a conversation exactly like that. Oh, did I hurt you? I wanted to try something tomorrow. Is that okay? And this is an exact conversation that, I had with Sophie on a day-to-day basis on, sort of the 2-week run. There's also there's lovely bits where every actor wants a leg up sort of thing, but everyone hides it, which I think is very, I don't think we admit it, but I think at the back of our minds, we really want to either play the lead or play the next sort of character up. And you can just feel everyone in there, so Edmund Keynes kind of had whatever his episode, but everyone's kind of looking for that leg up, and it's quite potent in there in sort of very subtle ways. And I think being an actress, being that being her first love, she feeds it into that ever so nicely. So it's a lovely parallel that goes on in there.
Playing the character of Ira Aldridge, how does it feel to be playing a real life person from history? And did you do very much research into Ira, or leave it to what's in the text?
I did very little research, with the understanding that our director did a lot of it. He did loads. I remember the first couple of readings, he'd have these new nuggets to share about Ira and, what he was like and, that sort of thing. So that was lovely. The little bit I'd done, I was more interested in what the time period was like, and attitude towards certain acting styles and attitude towards black actors and that sort of thing. So I can feed off, the reaction when I first walk into the room. It's like, good afternoon, and that sort of thing, but still trying to be very confident and, because you're playing a lead, so to speak. So yeah, in that sense, I would say that was the shape of my research. It was very little because, thank you, Alan, did the bulk of it, and for everyone really, not just me. But then what I did was, what was the world like at that time? I always think that, for me anyway, I'm not saying it's the most important thing, but for me, that's the most important thing if you're going to be playing a factual character. What was the world like? So you can get your gestures right. How would you respond to a woman? The fact that I say, oh, is it all right if I call you, Helen, which was unheard of, you call her Miss Tree.
It's probably a bit American, that as well, isn't it?
Exactly,
yeah.
Exactly.
Did you have a voice coach because the two of you playing the American actor, did you have a voice coach for the accent, or had you done that before?
No. So I will admit, my American accent is god-awful.
Come see the show, folks.
But the casting is good in the sense that I'm playing him after he's been in the UK for 10 years. Yes, that's true. So the idea is it's phasing out. Well, it won't phase out completely because he's 26 when he gets it. But after 10 years, there'll be certain and speaking from experience, this isn't my real accent, if I'm being honest. I speak this way to fit in, sort of thing. When I'm with my family and friends, it completely changes, and then I speak, I use more of a West African accent. Yeah. But over the years, I've developed this accent. So what I'm trying to say is, in terms, if you're looking for realism in some aspect, my awful accent helps. It's authentic. It's authentic. There we go. It helps that narrative. Let's put it that way. So no, simple answer to that. No, we didn't have a voice coach. But what I have been doing, because Hugh's accent's pretty good, So I've been now listening to Hugh a lot. I think that's the first thing he said. First thing I said to him, Hugh, the American accent is going to be a challenge, especially considering it's American accent in, early 19th century. It's going to be a massive challenge. And Hugh just said, listen to me, which I do.
So, as we've talked about a little bit, the play includes some of the rehearsals for Shakespeare's Othello, and Othello is the character that Ira is playing in London. As Ira, you'll be playing Othello, which will be your second time this season, after you played Othello in the Crescent's production in November 2023. Because in Red Velvet you're playing a character who's acting Othello, and in a classical production in the 1800s, presumably these are very different experiences. But has playing Othello before helped with preparing for the show?
Yes and no. Yes, in that, I'll tell you, learning lines is the most tedious thing. It's learning lines and blocking, I tend to find the most boring. Every job has, the parts of it that you don't like. And for me, that's what I don't enjoy. It has to be done, I understand it. Yeah. But in terms of line, there's like 2.5 pages of Othello, which I didn't really have to learn. Which made me the envy of some of the cast. But that really helped. What didn't help, or what doesn't help, is he's got to come off as very aggressive. And so Alan's directed it. He's responding to what the script is. Yeah. He's got to come as very, very, more than I was at this point in the play. Yeah. So it's the speech about his mother's handkerchief and it being given to him by a Sibyl of this witch-like person. So when I did it for the first time with Colin, it was a very beautiful poetic speech, trying to guilt-trip Desdemona, but it was just very sort of lovely. But in this, it had to be very violent. So when later on they say, "Oh, he was quite rough with you," it makes sense. Yeah. So that didn't help because I've still got. Well, I still had, it's gone now, but I still had Colin's sort of blocking and that sort of process in mind. And then every now and again, because Lolita can't put the whole Othello play in there because we'd be there forever. Yeah. So she's chopped bits off. So every now and again, I realize I'm going into the full speech. It's like, no, it's not. So in that case, that didn't help at all as well. But in terms of understanding the character of Othello, I think if I ever had a chance to play Othello again, somewhere, wherever, doing it this way also gives me, I can actually feel it would give me an even better understanding of the character, because now I've got, we can do it violent, we can do it calm. Put the two together, we can get something even more authentic, something even more dynamic. And I think I was watching a documentary on Lolita's... her husband. There we go, Adrian Lester. And he did the full round. So he played Othello, then played Ira, then came back and played Othello. And what he was saying is he actually understands Othello better. Yeah. And I can clearly see how that's happened. So a bit of both, I think, yeah.
So the last time the Crescent put on Othello, in 2004 and 2005, Hugh Blackwood played Othello. When we interviewed him for the podcast previously, paraphrasing him a little bit, he said that for black actors, when they're playing Othello, there's a real sense of representing their community and their culture, so you're very aware of the weight of that. So you're playing both Othello and Ira Aldridge, who are both icons in their own way. Does that ring true for you for this show as well, or for your time as Othello?
Yes, certainly. It didn't ring true when we first started rehearsing Othello. Yeah. But then after all, I kind of got it. Because I'm learning Shakespeare as an adult. Being from Ghana, we don't do Shakespeare in the same way that it's done here. Obviously, I knew of Othello, I knew the plot ever so roughly, but then doing it in that sort of extreme detail, that amount of detail, it started weighing in on me. If I could give just two little anecdotes. So there's a sketch on YouTube, and this sketch, it's about basically two African-American, and they're quite famous. One of them is directed Get Out.
Is it Key and Peele?
Yeah, there we go. So they go back in time and they watch Othello. And they come out of Othello, the first half, going, wow, did you see that? We've got a black man playing the lead, and he's so smooth, and look at how, did you see all the white people around and just, sort of giving him respect and, and then they watch the second half and they're like, no, they killed him. And did you see how crazy he turned out to be? Did you see? And so the way it wraps up is they kidnap Shakespeare and they say, you've got to do a better job. And Shakespeare comes out with Shaft. That's the sort of joke at the end. But it's the idea, when you're watching it, I can imagine when you're watching it, you might even know the plot, but you're still willing Othello not to behave and Shakespeare, is fantastic and phenomenal as he is, in my view, he still creates a very two-dimensional black male. Yeah. Either smooth and lovely, right, or absolutely bonkers. Yeah. And there seems to be almost no in-between, all right? Now, that was the sort of reaction to people from the African continent at the time, so we understand that. But when you're trying to play him in the 21st century, you can't change the script. Yeah. You can't change the plot, but you can try and make it so he is more human than just two-dimensional, because that's the weight of the Afro-Caribbean community. That's what they're looking for, right? Because I remember my mum, the first thing she said was, that was a great performance, son. But why so nasty at the end? And I told her what the plot was, and I said, well, and I asked her, but did you see how? And he was like, yeah, I could see it. And even Ira says it at one point, he's talking to his wife and he says, they have to feel the pain of his breakdown. Now you can ask yourself, who's they? They could be just the audience, but you can imagine who were in the audience. Predominantly would have been white people. So they have to see this three-dimensional character. And I think, yeah, it's something that weighs in, so that you present something that everyone can kind of see, okay, the human behind these decisions that were made, albeit as tragic as it was.
So without giving too much away, the play finds Ira at two times in his life, in the early decades of his career and in the last decade of his career. In the original professional production, as I think we've mentioned before, possibly, the actor Adrian Lester played both parts. But in this production, we have two actors playing the same character in the different scenes at each end of his career. So you're playing the younger Ira, and Hugh Blackwood, who we've mentioned before, is playing the older Ira. Because you're playing the same person at different ages, how do you tackle that in the show, and did you work on that together?
Yeah, we did. So personally, whenever I come across challenges, acting challenges, the first thing I look at is, what can I not do anything about? What can't I change? Can't change the scripts, can't change direction. It's the director, what he wants. And I'm very compliant in that way. What the director gets usually. So what can I do? Right, another thing I can't change, Hugh's a bit taller than me, can't change that. We don't look alike, can't change that. And although he is becoming a bit like sort of my older brother, so to speak, yeah, we have different parents. So can't change any of that. But what can we do? We can have the same gestures. Yeah. And so we worked on that. So Hugh spent a lot of, he tells me, right, I'm watching you today. So just if I'm looking at you, I'm not being weird. Yeah. And then, vice versa. So I also watch him. So we've got these gestures that we do at any given point to kind of indicate that, right, we're the same person. Alan has got us doing at least one very key gesture that also kind of sums him up. Not sums him up complete, but sums an aspect of the man that he is. And then just being, I remember the first time Hugh and I, we thought, let's just meet up. We'll go through some of these ideas. Honestly, we met up for a coffee and we probably spent 5 minutes on Red Velvet, and the rest of it was just chatting about ourselves, chatting about what it was like to play Othello, how, what he did with it 20 years ago, and just getting to know him in that way, and him getting to know me in that way, kind of, although we don't interact at all on stage. It'd be kind of weird if we did. But that being comfortable in that space, because I'm not going to give anything away, but Alan is doing something with Hugh, in certain scenes, just feels, when you feel comfortable, I'm finding that we're doing things alike. We're mirroring each other. So we can at least present this idea of we are the same person. Yes, you might have to use your imagination a bit to kind of, he's about an inch taller than I am, don't look alike. He has an incredibly rich, melodious voice. Hopefully I will get that at some point. But yeah, that was the process there.
So what are you enjoying about rehearsing the show, and what's been the most challenging aspect of the role so far, if you haven't covered that already?
Yeah. No, so enjoying what I'm enjoying. I'm enjoying the fact that I'm in it. that I'm acting, I'm doing what I love to do. I'm enjoying the comedy. Funny enough, it's very funny in places, particularly in the first half of things. I'm starting to enjoy also the last scene. Again, I won't give too much away, but it's heavy. I think last rehearsal, coming off from the stage, so to speak, you just felt that drop from where I was on stage. I don't know, where did that come from? So I'm enjoying that. Challenges always, learning lines. I wish they could invent, I don't know, Chat GTP or so. GTP? GPT? Yeah. Find a way to cram the book in your brain or something. That would be easier. Yeah, exactly.
Know your lines.
Yeah, I wish. Yeah. So there's always that, but we always get it in the end. It's a very proppy play.
Yeah.
But outside of that, no, it's been lovely.
Yeah.
It's been lovely, yeah.
Do you have a method for learning your lines? Because I know some people write them down, some people run them with other people, some people just repeat them over and over again.
Yeah. I thought I had a method. I think it changes every play. But the one thing I find I do, no matter what, is pace. I'm a pacer. So I get up and pacing really helps. I don't know if it's the rhythm of the pacing or that helps me. And sometimes as well, if I feel like I'm forgetting something, somehow the brain does this funny thing where it says, oh, remember when you were pacing, you were stood by the TV when you said that? Oh yeah, that was that word. Yeah.
So as part of the publicity for the show, you, Hugh, and the show's director, Alan Marshall, had a chance to speak to the play's author, Lolita Chakrabarti. What was that experience like?
I think I was in a bit too much awe. It was a fantastic experience. So it started off with, wow, it's happening and it's here. And then I remember we were asked to prep 2 questions. I remember Alan asking me, have you got your questions? And I said, yes. He says, what are they? So I'm not telling you. I was so very much involved with this, and excited to the point where I didn't want to say the wrong thing. Is there a wrong thing to be said? But she was so laid back and ever so helpful and just answered every single question that we had and left it so open. I don't think I'll ever live it down. Yeah. Basically, it was a fantastic experience and very informative. Yeah. And it's lovely to get, because I think one of the things, maybe more as a director than an actor, you're thinking, will the playwright be okay? Unless you're one of those directors that don't care. But if you're a director that actually cares about how the playwright would feel about what you're doing with, his or her work, for her to just say, it's yours, that was phenomenal. That was brilliant.
In your professional life, you're also a teacher and a head of drama. Do your teaching career and your time acting inform each other?
Yeah, when we're doing some plays that lap, I'm saying when we're doing some plays that lap, the only play that we've done that laps is Much Ado. That's probably why I like it so much as well, was Much Ado. So year 8 I teach a bit of drama as well. Yeah. So year 8 do Much Ado About Nothing in the summer term. So I'm still doing that with them at the moment. And I'm not a director my first passion is acting, but I get to direct, and again, it's not, a massive thing. It's just a bunch of year 8s. But it's lovely to then stand there and go, oh, okay, so when you say that line, move here. When you say that line, move there. So that, especially when we were doing Much Ado, informed a lot of, what I did with Don Pedro and that kind of thing. It just makes me love it even more, if that makes sense. And one of the things I say to the kids every time we are going to do a Shakespeare is I say, who likes Shakespeare? No one likes Shakespeare. I say, why don't you like Shakespeare? Well, he speaks weird and it's, I don't get it. And it's so long. The plots are always the same, sir. And, I say to them, right, all I need you to do for me is to just have an open mind. And I guarantee you 70% of you, maybe not all, but 70% of you will like Shakespeare before you leave at the end of this term, or at the end of the year, because it's the summer term. And all the time. I remember even at one of the year 11s she's more into her contemporary stuff. She's actually now going to performing arts school, and she started off with, Shakespeare, what you do, And I remember one of the lessons she came and she was talking to me about the characterization of, I think she was playing Beatrice, it must have been Beatrice, yeah. And she was like, when she was walking away after we'd had our conversation, she was like, I freaking love this play. It's like, yes, score. So yes, it just makes it all enjoyable and all worth it.
They're both equally enjoyable for different reasons. So you're not getting sick of theatre at any point. You're just there going, I love this.
Yeah, I love it. Spot on. I mean, teaching drama isn't, how do I put it? I enjoy being in the classroom, particularly if I'm with a bunch of pupils who also are ready to give it a go. Of course, there's the difficulty because of the way drama is viewed in academia as this sort of, nice to have, or, we'll do it when there's nothing else to do, which it really does frustrate me. But when you get a group, especially that tends to happen in Key Stage 4, and even that it might be just a sort of sub-part of the group who are really into it, who are looking to do it outside of school, it's beautiful. And it's lovely, and I love doing that. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen often. But yes, when that happens and everything aligns, it's fantastic. It's in the stars, as they say.
So, as I mentioned at the beginning, you're a critically acclaimed actor. So far, your credits at the Crescent have been in acting roles in a mixture of classical and contemporary plays. And you mentioned directing as a teacher a little bit. Is there anything you'd like to do in future, on stage or backstage?
Yeah, so I want to do a lot more backstage stuff, just learn the trade a little bit more. Of course, that comes with time and so on and so forth. My overall dream is to one day go back to Ghana, and I will go back to Ghana. I'll go back regularly. I go back regularly anyway, and to start my own little theatre company. And it helps if you know sort of what happens backstage as well, and also a bit of the business side of things. I might have to bring up my old university and college notes when we did drama business or business of drama. I can't remember what it was called. I know that hopefully it's miles away, but that's how I'd like to wind down my sort of career, if you speak, be it teaching or drama or both, acting or both. So yeah, that's it. So I would like to kind of pick up a few more stuff backstage, props, costume, particularly the business side of things, which I would imagine is very boring, but it's important. It keeps the lights on, exactly. Directing, definitely. And then when I think, okay, can go, because back home it's one of those things where the potential is there. But it's not as celebrated. It's not, the government doesn't really bother putting much funds into it, that sort of thing. And so it's one of those things that's kind of teetering. And I think it's just waiting for as many people as possible to come and just kind of put some time and effort and a bit of funding into it. Yeah.
So one of the good things about the amateur theatre is it gives you the opportunity to experiment in all of the different aspects with no input, because obviously it's a commitment, but you might only be doing, say, props or lighting or costume or something for one show at a time, rather than having to go and do a course or work on a show. And all the technical departments would be delighted to see new people there, or always are. In terms of directing, is there any particular projects you'd have in mind if you wanted to do that, or is it just something you're keen to try your hand at?
Anything at that. Obviously, if you give me a choice and it was on, it would be Much Ado. Who's directing Much Ado? Me? Hell yeah, I'm here. I'll do whatever you want. But anything. Anything at all to begin with, anything I can. Like you said, it's about commitment, isn't it? And so it would be about finding that time. And then, making sure that I'm here all the time and dedicate the same amount of time that I do when I'm actually on stage doing all of that, which I definitely would do. So once that's sorted, then can't stop me. I'll be picking up anything that needs picking up. I'm very interested in sounding and light. Sound, audio, sound and light. Yeah. I'm very interested in those two. They just seem very complicated. I just feel like it's one of those things where if you don't know what you're doing and you push a button, everything goes wrong. So I'd like to know how that works. But I spend a lot of time, even now that I am on stage, just watching these different departments, watching people like Jackie and Carolyn and
so they're the production assistants for this show?
Yeah, and they might at some point think I'm being a bit weird, but I'm just watching them and what they do, how they take things down. When people have done props in the past, I'm always watching. I spend so much time watching the director. I went recently to one of the directing workshops that was held here by Liz
Plumpton, who's the arts manager. Yeah,
exactly. So I'm always watching people.
Yeah, well, they'd be delighted to have you at any point, I'm sure. Yeah, just say to Jackie I'm interested in props, and you'll be a hero for life. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about today, or let us know about?
No, nothing else except for the fact, come and see the play. Not because I always, when I'm asked, why should I come and see, will I learn anything? I always think, personally, I always go to theatre first to be entertained. Yes. That's my first thing. I'm not going there to learn or find this new way of thinking about a particular hardcore concept in life or whatever. Yeah. I'm going to be entertained, right? Then if things that happen on stage make me start thinking about certain things and I'm learning certain things or start asking, that is a fantastic bonus. Yeah. So what I'll say to people is, please come and see the play. Not because you're going to learn anything, you might, but mainly because it's going to be a fantastic, entertaining evening. Yeah. And if you leave with something to talk about, even better, because the cast, we're entertaining ourselves on stage, and we can't stop talking about the different themes and ideas. So we're getting best of both.
Wonderful. So, Papa, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast, and all the best for the show, which opens soon.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Go to rehearsal. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Amateur of Life and Death podcast. If you'd like to listen to more, make sure you subscribe at podcast.crescent-theatre.co.uk or via Spotify or Apple Podcasts to get the next episode. You can find out more about the Crescent Theatre Birmingham and our upcoming productions, including Red Velvet, Bleak Expectations and All My Sons, by visiting www.crescent-theatre.co.uk or by following us on social media. Lolita Chakrabarti's writing agent is Katie Haynes at the Agency London, and her acting agent is Sarah McCormick at Curtis Brown. Amateur of Life and Death is a Crescent Theatre production. This episode was researched and presented by Laura East, with additional interview content courtesy of Rod Natkeel and David Baldwin for the Crescent Theatre. The music is by Brendan Stanley, and the podcast was edited by Laura East.